Welcome to William Steele, True Crime and Steele Spotlight Television, Radio, and now Public Relations. I'm back with my co-host Ignacio Esteban.
Well,
Ignacio's retired ATF agent. Everybody knows him by now. He's all over the map, and he's blessed me with his presence again. Once again,
thank
he's been an incredible
you, man.
co-host, and we're going to be coming to you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. live across all my channels. So we have some interesting breaking news stories today, and we're going to give you our perspective. Me as the
Sure.
former crook, him as the former cop.
Absolutely. You get it from both sides of the fence. Pretty interesting stuff. And sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. That's the beauty of the show.
Right, right. Like I said, never DeSantis.
I'm a Sanders guy. And we'll talk about politics a little bit later in the show there with Trump and his fourth indictment coming in. Where is this going to end for him? And oh my, what the heck?
He'll be president from a prison cell, pardon himself, and get released the same day.
Maybe, possibly. That's good. Could happen. It could happen.
What do we have today, Ignacio? You got a couple of things on the table.
Things that I felt passionate about that happened recently. The disgraced performance for the women's soccer team in the World Cup in Australia, New Zealand. Unbelievable. How could you not? And if you haven't seen the video, folks, go check it out. Go on YouTube. Just check in the women's soccer team. Not giving respect to our national anthem and our flag, not putting your hand over your heart and singing along, but protesting it after how great this country's been to you, the opportunities it's giving you, and what it's done to stop oppression around the world with the fascists, the Nazis, the communists, the Soviets, ISIS, all these different groups around the world that we've taken down, and not to give the country respect, but call it a bully, because they're left-wing politics. If you haven't seen what they stand for, they think this country is a bunch of racists. This country is very anti, gay communities, LGBT community, or they're anti whatever other groups they're against, and they protested. That's not the time. You represent your country.
The sad part about it is they're being spoon-fed that by the media and by the politicians who want their votes. Those politicians may not even feel that way, but they're saying it and they're stoking the problems all the time. It's the mainstream media and the left-wing politicians that do this drama that we, who are on the other side, have a problem with everybody, and we just don't. They don't exist. They're fabricated problems. These things might have existed, 50 years ago, but everybody has issues today, individual issues. But this big, I saw them standing there like in such arrogance, such ignorance and arrogance, standing there.
It's just there. Yeah.
No, I think they were kneeling. Excuse me, during the picture, they were kneeling, and the other ones were standing, who actually were acknowledging what they were doing. But
it's really disgraceful for them. It's what people say. Sports and politics. You're out there. You're representing your country. Especially, I understand. If you want to do it on your own time, which I don't agree with. But now when you're representing our country and you're doing that, that's just very arrogant. And the backlash has been enormous. And they had won the World Cup now twice in a row. They're going to be the first team in history to try to win it 3 times in a row. And I think a lot of their actions were buying them back. And they lost a really bad game to Sweden in a shootout penalty, 5-4. And that's the first time they've ever lost so early in a World Cup competition. They've always made the semis or beyond.
Because they have all this bad karma and energy against them for what they're doing. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened to Brittany Griner? My God. And you see, I hate the United States. I won't, I'm not going to, stand for the national anthem and take a kneel, all this nonsense. No matter what your sexual beliefs, what does it have to do with where you were born and raised and who gave you that opportunity that you have?
And still, we've done shows about this. Victor Bout is no reason he should be out. And that was the worst trade in U.S. history for her, for him. Merchant of death, right? The Lord of War himself. And he's out there causing problems in Russia. People know that he's aspiring to run for office. And don't be surprised if he doesn't take over for Putin or he's involved in this. Because he said in an interview when he got out with Maria Butin, who herself was a convicted spy here in the United States.
I remember that. Something with the NRA. I remember that.
Yes. You haven't seen that. I did a little bit about her. Mm-hmm. And she interviews him in English. They both are talking because they've both spent time in an American institution. They were incarcerated, both of them. And he said the biggest mistake Putin he waited too long to invade Ukraine. If that's what you want to do, you should have done that when you had your puppet in there. It was a big mistake to do with Zelensky because he was not that kind of guy.
Right.
So that's him. Imagine he gets in power, what he will do. So It's a really ugly situation there. And then we've talked about also in the shows there, and the war is escalating a lot more with attacks now with drones Ukraine is doing in Moscow. I don't know if you're seeing all the more attacks are happening at the train stations, everything else. It's escalating to a point where we're going to have another endless war. We're worth the budget. We're putting, I think it's over $100 billion and counting, right? Another endless war. We're going to hit $1 trillion. We're going to have $33 trillion in debt, right? It's going to keep on. And this is in the European backyard. What is our European allies doing to fund more about this? Why are we putting the big part of this bill here?
Let me ask you this. You said about the drone attacks. Are these military obtained drones from another country, or are these civilian improvised drone like guerrilla attacks? What kind of drones?
I think they're obtained from other countries, and they're weaponizing them. And they're weaponizing them.
I remember seeing there was a couple of attacks. I thought maybe they were smuggling some civilian ones in with small explosives on them.
Yeah, so that's what they're doing. Yeah, for sure. They're weaponizing them, using them for that, and it's just going to escalate this war to perhaps Putin will use a nuclear weapon, tactical nuclear weapon in Kiev. Where is this going to stop? This is where they have a possible treat. I said last show, I'll say it again. You've got most of your country. You have Crimea and you have the Dubai region that's been disputed for years. Maybe you should have UN peacekeeping troops there, autonomize the region, right? But this has to come to an end, because if not, it's another Afghanistan, it's another Iraq, and we're just going to get dragged into more and more where it has to stop in here and it has to be worked out. This is time to do it. You got your country. Work out these regions here, because there were a lot of Russians in there, and people dispute that, that area has been disputed for years. And they're saying it's mostly Russian, they're saying it's Ukrainian. Those are things that have to be worked out. So those are the kind of things. I know we started with women's soccer team and we regressed to this, but that's a big problem we have, and we need to be looking what's going on. I've written a couple of books about that too, about Putin's tyranny and the battle for freedom, the war between Ukraine. But they have their freedom. You got your freedom. You got that area. Now it's time to work things out. And he's
not going to want to ever surrender, because I think he's already been indicted in The Hague as a war criminal, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been out there in The Hague, but who's going to extradite him?
I don't know. It's like Idi Amin when he fled Uganda. Didn't he get exiled, or they agreed to keep his money? He lived out his life in France or something.
Remember all these guys do. They work out deals. They can work out deals. Or you know what? Putin stays in his big $1 billion palace out there in the Black Sea. And one of these guys, one of these defectors, he just got sentenced to over 20 years. He had left the country. He was poisoned, came back in protest. His name is in my book. And then now he's got sentenced to 20 years. You don't want to be a dissident in Russia, that's for sure.
Yeah, he has a habit of using his KGB connection skills and assassins to go after people, allegedly, with poison and everything else.
Yes, he does. And if you're a reporter or you're criticizing him, you write books about him, don't be next to an open window, that's for sure, while you're taking a bath or a shower. People end up slipping there, and out the window they go again, one after the other. Whoop.
There was a case with some other defector that I think him and his wife or daughter died because they sprayed something on the doorknob to their house or something. It was like a perfume type bottle.
And even if you're in London, sometimes he'll track you down. He'll poison you out there in London, which has happened also. Now he's ruthless, but that's the point. Is now it's time to get a treaty going, because if not, this is going to be $1 trillion easily, where we can be using this money to solve our own problems here. We helped you. We got you what you wanted. Now it's time for negotiations, because this doesn't end. Right. This is not going to end, and it's going to be another Afghanistan. Biden administration. We're talking a little politics here. Remember, he said he got tired of these endless wars, 20 years, but he got us in an endless war now.
Of course,
and that's what we have. He ended badly, and he started badly.
As soon as things come out about his son that are confirmed, or more whistleblowers come out, the next day Trump gets another criminal charge to take the media cycle off of his son and back on Trump again.
Yeah, and we can talk about his son. We can transition over now to more information coming out from the cocaine in the White House, right? How can we win the war on drugs? We can't keep cocaine out of the White House. Is that something, Bill? Cocaine in the White House. What the heck? I know DC is full of it, but in the White House also? Remember the mayor, the crack smoking mayor out of DC? Barry. Yeah, they smoking crack and all that. Yeah. Taking a hit from the pipe, and now you have the son. Hopefully, he's not the president, right? Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Is the president doing lines too? If he's snorting some?
I don't know. Yeah,
but allegedly, a story that I think I forwarded you on
the hooker.
I forwarded you on the Washington Examiner. I was reading it. Sources say that Secret Service knows who it belongs to, allegedly. They have prints from that came in. They're not saying. I think they should, because they work for us, right? They should tell us what's going on here,
right?
And that the president allegedly is in his inner circle. Who else could it be?
If they just tell the public and get away with it by saying it's under investigation, I'm not going to tell you who the prince belonged to.
Yeah, exactly. And how is that going? Like I said, it's this war on drugs is just a disaster. A disaster. We don't have equal partners in Mexico. People they have these addictions. And if you haven't seen those pictures from his laptop from Hunter Biden, you just have to put two and two together. This guy's had a long history, not just of cocaine, of crack. He does it all. Those pictures are horrific. And that sweetheart deal, I know we talked before, or say it again, that is a bad deal.
Right.
You know, he should not be getting that kind of deal. From the whistleblower from the IRS who's saying they had felony charges. FBI also said it. ATF also saying it. I'm saying it with his weapon charges. I mean, he should be getting some time, at least a felony, out of this for lying in those forms, buying the guns, being a drug user in possession, right? All these weapons, not just one. It's a lot. He's a dangerous guy. Dangerous guy to be cracked out like that with guns like that.
What's the name of the form again that he lied on?
4473, ATF transaction form 4473. And
4473. Now, yeah. Ignacio, remember, I mean, for our audience, he's retired ATF. He's literally brought cases against people who lied on that exact form.
Yes.
That Hunter Biden lied on, and he sent people to prison. The prosecutors did for that exact charge that this guy is getting a break from.
Yeah,
if we struggle with a cocaine problem or lied on a gun for him, I'd be going to prison for 5 or 10 years.
He would. Pretrial diversion. He gets pretrial diversion. What? No, you don't get that for gun charges like that. Especially it's serious, folks. This is serious stuff he has there. Look at the video and the pictures from that laptop that appeared there at the shop, and all of a sudden, look at those videos. You haven't seen that? All the stuff he has there. He is out of his mind with weapons. Should not. That's a dangerous situation.
I see one where he's walking around in his underwear, cracked out in a hotel room. I think he's got a gun in his hand or something.
Yes. You don't think he's a danger to his family, himself? And then, of course, I find this wrong. Allegedly, it was his girlfriend, which was his former sister-in-law, right? His brother passed away from brain cancer. Then he starts dating his sister-in-law. I don't. What kind of family is this?
That's pretty creepy. It makes you wonder what was going on even before the guy died. You know,
maybe when he was sick already. I mean, I don't know. We're just speculating here, folks. We don't know.
Yeah,
but that alone is
because we both know human nature and we know how these creepy things play out on both sides.
Hunter Biden,
her, and that was it. That was all it took.
So I think people we should know who this cocaine belonged to. I know it's an embarrassment, and if it is the president. He's having issues with it because of his son. Maybe his son got him addicted. Because he's always defending his son no matter what. I mean, there's a point where you have to say, okay, the guy has issues. Enough is enough here. When do you cut the line? You can't call him one of the smartest guys I've ever known. He's such a good really? This guy's not. He has issues. They
just found like millions of dollars, tens of millions routed to various Biden family members, you know, through Hunter Biden's connections, and because of his father involved in these deals.
Pay to play.
China, Ukraine, where else is all this money coming from?
Pay to play schemes. These are called pay to play. You pay me, you get access. At the time, my father was vice president of the United States with Barack Obama president. That's a pay to play.
I look at it like this: as a former criminal, I look at it like this: if I'm doing something illegal, you're paying me in cash. I don't care if it's $10 million in a couple of suitcases. I want cash. Or some raw diamonds or some Krugerrands or something. I don't want any wire transfers.
But there's a huge paper trail. No, that, and then he says later, well, maybe now the optics don't look good. That's President Biden. Really? Now because you got caught? You did anything you can to help your son, to help your brother. I mean, his brother was also involved. And he has no experience in the energy sector either.
Right.
It's a joke. It's all about you want access to my father, then you got to pay me, and then you get it. He
even gave an intimidating message to somebody like that. You know, I'm going to tell my father if this something along the lines of this money isn't here in the next hour or something. He might be really pressuring somebody.
He pressure people because he has an addiction, and and people have that crack addiction or cocaine addiction. That's what they're living for. They want to just score. They need the next score because that's what their life's about.
Recently, he was on the balcony. I forget the occasion with this whole family, and he was pacing behind them, sweating bullets and rubbing his face like this, like he was strung out. It was so funny. It was all over the internet. They said he's still using coke, probably, allegedly.
Allegedly, and it's a sad situation because his life and what he's done and access, he's hurting his father, he's hurting himself, and it's just going downhill. But he, at the end, let's see when the new deal comes out, he should get a felony. He should get a felony, and if he doesn't, that's a shame. That's a deal he got. While they're, like I said, with the Trump administration, just one other indictment coming after another one, fourth one, maybe a fifth one now. Oh my goodness!
They have like a body man or somebody carrying around the nuclear codes within a few feet of these people.
Yeah. No, he's if he's snorting a line, well, he has that. That's unbelievable.
Right. Okay, what do we have? What do we have next for our audience? Because you know what, the media beats this to death, and yes, there's something new with this because now there's fingerprints. There is fingerprints. They know it's to Biden's inner circle, but they're refusing to tell us who it belongs to.
And think about this, Bill. Bill, think about this. Not just fingerprints. You know the whole place has cameras everywhere, right?
Of course.
They know exactly who this belongs to. They know, and they're keeping it because it's an embarrassment. Is it Hunter? Is it someone else? Does someone else finally have a cocaine addiction too? Well, what is this? Is this a family of cokeheads? Everybody is just snoring. A family that snorts coke together stays together. What the heck? What is going? It is, but you couldn't write this. People wouldn't believe. Oh no, wait.
And not only, like you said, the cameras, especially in that environment, they could backtrack anything.
Everything.
But so the prints. But guess what? Touch DNA is everywhere. You're with law enforcement. In my day, doing a lot of burglaries, there wasn't a lot of DNA collection.
No,
unless there was like a violent crime committed during the burglary. But now I heard they're collecting touch DNA even during burglaries. So,
yeah, they're doing DNA on a lot of stuff. They want to solve these kids. I know when we were arresting people, more at the end of my career, we had DNA kits and we'll do swabs, so we'll have that on file, CODIS. So it's a lot of stuff out there that wasn't. With technology, everything changes, right? And things get tougher. It's easier to make good cases against some of these people, especially with serial killers. I know we've talked about that too.
So for the audience who's not aware, touch DNA is essentially you don't have to leave a print anymore. If you're going to break into a place and somebody accidentally touched the doorknob or the glass, like with the side of their hand or their elbow, you're leaving cells and you're leaving sweat.
Yeah, and
that can be spotted by the technology, and then they swab that and they get your DNA and they bust you.
Especially they have a database, they match it up.
Right. If you've ever been arrested,
we have DNA databases, so that's going to match up.
Or in the military, even I think it'll show it.
So cases get easier to be made, for sure. That's it, and which is good because DNA it's pretty much reliable. It's I would say up there. So that's a good way to make some cases here. Yeah, they know. We know what's
Rex Huerman. He's not just the only serial killer, alleged serial killer in New York, the Giglo Beach serial killer in Long Island. Pizza crust had his DNA on it. His saliva, just discarded. Police are allowed when you discard something.
Oh, sure.
It's fair game. They no longer need a warrant. If they observe you discarding it, they've documented with their cameras and they take it and they change the custody and everything.
Just like garbage.
Yep. Once it's discarded, it's fair game.
They collect garbage all the time. Evidence.
You don't need a law enforcement.
And that's how you get a lot of search warrants too. It's amazing.
So let me ask you a question. Garbage. If you were on the job and you had to do a trash pull, I guess they call them, right? That's pretty disgusting. However, if the people know,
yes, it is, Bill,
and they go to throw out their trash a few hours later, their bags are missing, and they know that the truck hasn't come yet. What do you do about that scenario? Do you put all the trash in there?
Sometimes you can put fake bags in there also.
You'd have to know what kind of bags they're using and all that.
Get creative, but you know what? These kind of people, especially we're dealing with drug dealers and all that, they don't pay attention, Bill.
Well, those are lower level, but anybody doing high level crime,
high level, you got to be high level. It's a little bit trickier. When you do mid level, then you put some other bags in there, or you try time it. You know when the trash pickup's it, so you try and hit it just before. So you do it at night too. So Those are things people don't know what you have to do. But the worst thing is when you do a more low level and you try to get a search warrant inside a house and you're doing a trash pull and everything else, and nothing's worse. People put all this dirty food in there in the bag, and you have all these insects and these
Diapers.
oh, everything in there, nasty. But but at the end when you do find the kilo wrapping, you go bingo. Or
You got some fingerprints, some touch DNA, and you got some evidence.
Bingo in there. It's like that's nice. So that's a little side story. I wasn't gonna plan to tell, but things that we have to do as agents. One of many things that we do. Check out the box. I never thought being an agent I'll be doing trash pulls, but I did. I did a lot of those, and very successful and very good at it to help make my cases too. By the way,
that's why people should be shredded, because criminals do trash pulls also to look for your financials so they can get into your stuff. All right,
I agree. I agree. To be very careful with your personal information. That's something to tell folks. You should shred your things. Don't just toss it in the trash, because there's bad people who go. And these guys sometimes will work. I don't want to say all of them, but some of them work in these garbage companies. They do look through your trash. So be careful with that personal information. That's the low level way. High level, easy way to take it is through computers. And be careful. Don't give your personal information to anybody on the phone or online. When anyone asks for a social security number, don't do that. Don't be giving your personal information.
When I was in prison in Florida years ago, I had low custody. They used to take 10 of us from the work camp to work at the local dump at the recycling. Mountain of trash. They'd have somebody with a bobcat put it on a conveyor belt. We had like biohazard suits on with gloves. We had to tear every bag open. This is in the Panhandle by Sandestin Beach. So
okay.
All this hotel trash coming in, like you said, disgusting. Everything under the sun's in there. I mean, let me just give you one example of how disgusting it get.
Oh, they are
like condoms with lipstick on them type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really disgusting things.
Make sure you wear gloves.
Yeah. So we'd have these big rubber gloves and the mask and everything, but there was times when people would dump them out. Like, one time a guy opened up a tennis racket cover, and it had, I think it was like a kilo of heroin inside of there. And so he was going home soon. So what he did is climbed the rafters of the indoor building, and he jammed it up in the rafters when everybody else was at lunch. And he went home a few weeks later, came back and got it. They seen him climbing up there. And he said, "Hey, everybody." And he said, "I'm going to see the supervisor." He didn't go to see the supervisor. He just climbed, got his stash, and took off. I think he got pulled over on the side of the road after he left there because they were suspicious about what he went to get. But like, you find guns and stuff, and of course you had to tell the supervisor if you found a gun in the trash.
Sure.
So there'd be guns, rifles, bullets, dead puppies, like from shelters where where they put that animals, bags full of dead animals. I can't even imagine what you saw.
No, it's all the same thing in there. I mean, I can't imagine how sometimes people put so much weird stuff in their garbage, which is amazing. And you're looking for certain things, but remember, these people a lot of them are users and they're dealers, right? So they're not really well. They barely can function, which I've noticed. And they have a lot. Sometimes you see a lot of maggots because they have a lot of food. You find maggots in the bag, and you're like, man, what the heck?
Yeah, and look, and the one over there by the resort in that nice area that the trash was coming from, there'd be pill bottles with like Oxycontin, Xanax, all this stuff that's got street value. So some of the guys would take the gloves from the fingers, the rubber fingers, and on the break they would put as many pills in there as they could, swallow them or suitcase them the other way. And you go to the work camp, the only thing they do is they strip you naked so you're not bringing bullets or handcuff keys back in, and they'll make you walk naked through the metal detector, And these guys were getting these serious pills and big things full of them, and then they can make a medical trip or a law library trip to the main unit. You have to schedule it. And if they go to the main unit, then their homeboys would meet them, and they'd drop them off at the main prison.
Now, how would they get in? Would they be stuffers? Would they put them up their anal cavity?
They call it suitcasing up their,
anal
behind,
cavity?
or swallow them. And then, again, once you're at the work camp, there's like 250 people there, very low custody. We're allowed to work out in the community and everything. But the big things, the medical department and the law library is over in the main unit. So what they would do is they'd sign up for that. And then one day when they get taken over there in a few days, they would get word to their homeboys that they're coming over, and they would be able to off that stuff onto the main unit where it's worth even more. Because the lower work camps are loaded with drugs. The big units are as well. But
yes, it's amazing how much smuggling goes into these prisons and these facilities. It's just unbelievable.
I've seen drones hung up on a razor rib, and they'd lock the facility down for a week. Somebody tried to fly over, and the drone is there with the package or dropping packages everywhere.
Welcome to 21st century America, and it's like this all over the world. I wrote a book about that, prison gang killers, and not just the United States, but how bad it's South Africa, Brazil, South America.
Right.
I mean, the gangs in prison. You think it's bad here? Have you ever seen Locked Up Abroad? That show Nat Geo.
It's horrible, horrible conditions. Yep, horrendous,
brutal. You're an American. You're locked up abroad. You're in trouble.
You're done. You're gonna either pay or you're gonna be used and
abused.
You know, it's weird because I have seen a lot of stuff, but yeah, I've seen that show after I got released, and I was like, I knew things were bad overseas, especially in some third world countries. But
yeah, if you haven't seen it, folks, check it out. I find it a fascinating show. People and they interview the people later, right? What was your experience? What happened here? What's going on here? So they explain to you what happened, and people write books about it. Also, it's interesting. But some of these places, like you go to, like in Venezuela, of course, it's got a control now. It's a communist nation. You go one of these places, they pretty much the inmates, the gangs run it. They just open the gate and throw you in, and you got to survive.
The same thing in El Salvador. It's loaded with that one group, we're talking about, just packed, jammed in there like sardines.
Yep.
It's inhumane conditions, and it doesn't make anybody any better. That's for sure.
Oh no, they got.
We talked about the drones and all that. Now, I'm saying this. I'm off parole as of a few months ago, and I'm free to kind of speak a little more freely now. Mm-hmm. But I always looked at my life like this, middle of tongue in cheek, like, okay, so I struggled with a cocaine addiction. I did a lot of illegal stuff, and then ultimately was using. And so I always looked at myself as a prisoner of war, the war on drugs, which was declared by President Nixon. I think it was like June of 1971. Right. We're in a war on drugs. So when they have a sign up for people that were like veterans, I'd say, I'm a prisoner of the war on drugs. So what's the first obligation of a prisoner? Escape, always planning his escape. So I literally spent all my bids planning escape, and I escaped several times, but I would usually just go out and come back before count. I would go meet a girl and do whatever we do, and I'd come back. The one time I didn't come back, of course, they profiled me on America's Most Wanted website and all this. And but I always was plotting escape. Always. I don't know. It was like in my blood because I always looked at myself as a prisoner of war. Right. And then when the drones came about, I'm saying, why are they flying handguns and handcuff keys and dope over this fence to get high and just continue in their misery cycle that they were doing on the street? Why don't they get like 20 drones and have them fly in unison with a harness, 100-pound fishing line, hook it to their belt, and have their buddies fly them right over the fence? Because I'm looking at it for escape.
Escape. That's interesting.
That's. I never discussed that with anybody there because I didn't want to give anybody ideas when I was in prison.
Right, right.
Those drones can lift a certain amount of pounds, and if you know your weight, you can figure out how many drones you need.
That's interesting. Escape by drone. But I think at the end, everybody gets caught, right? Almost everybody. Yeah. And then you get more time. So I think the best, hopefully, people who did their time, they learn their mistakes, right, Bill? They get better at their lives, right? Some guys don't learn.
Every program I took because they didn't have anything available about menial labor type like trades, roofing and cleaning floors, and you couldn't get in those classes for years. And then it took me 7 years. I was 7 years on a computer waiting list to learn how to use a computer.
No way.
And there was no like benchmarks for progress where they eventually graduate you out of the class. Guys who were in there like 10 seats could stay there as long as they wanted, because there was a decent looking woman running it. Nobody wanted to leave because you don't see women much in the prison.
Sure.
So I waited 7 years and I got released and still never took a computer class that was in the last facility I was in. 7 years fighting to get in this class.
Wow. So you never had a computer class while you were incarcerated?
Never. I have never. And they're not commonly available. In fact, there's been instances where ministries or people would donate like 20 computers, right, to start one. And you had a good warden who was allowing that and realized it's important. They couldn't get online, but at least they can learn to operate the computer, right? So then you'd have another warden who was more, law and order, gung-ho, take everything from the prisoners. And those would go right out and get donated to some local charity or maybe sold by the warden on the, on the black market.
If it's up to them, they'll put you back in the chain gang, right?
Right. And some states have done that. Florida, I've been on a chain gang, but you know what I did? I got like 1 million medical passes. Every little last, thing that was wrong with me. I had a no prolonged standing pass. I had a light duty pass. No heavy lifting over 15-pound pass.
So you never got the chain gang?
I just told you, but the way I got the easiest duty was the easiest duty when you're chained to 10 guys swinging a big swing blade chopping down Melaleuca in the freaking Everglades. The easiest way out of that crap is the medical passes. They can't. That's the only thing they have to listen to.
If not, it's a good way to lose weight, man. That's a good way to lose weight.
Well, I had so many passes. They said you're still not getting out of the chain gang, but we're gonna have you. There's a big orange igloo cooler with a little pointy cups. I was the guy when the guys were thirsty would come around, with chains on my legs, giving out water. I was the water guy.
Did you ever see the movie Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman?
Yes.
That's awesome, man. That's reminds me of that.
I think what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Yes. That's a classic. If you haven't seen that one, folks, I know for a younger generation, check it out. You'll check out that movie. I'm a big fan of Paul Newman and a lot of his work. He's done some really good movies. But another good topic to talk about, since we're talking about guns and smuggling and weapons and everything else. The Supreme Court now with ghost guns, right? 80%ers has put pretty much an injunction, pretty much to stop Polymer 80 from selling. And this is unbelievable. and I believe that, I'm very, as you know, Bill, very pro Second Amendment, but there has to be some background. You can still have these kits. These are 80%ers. That means it's not a complete lower receiver. It's not a complete frame, right? You have to still put it together with other parts, and then it'll be a functioning weapon, right? So this has been going on for a few years earlier, but it wasn't like in a nice kit like Polymer 80 had it. And I would have some cases. I'll tell you about one of them, which is pretty big, very significant.
Well, out for my audience, Ghost Gun, and I've been in prison when these came out, so I'm not that familiar with them. Is that to say they have no rifling and they have no serial number?
They have no serial number, right? Okay. And you're going to have to assemble it. But there's so many videos on YouTube now and other places, I'm not saying to do this, that you can do all this now. Right. It's pretty easy. You can do it within 20 minutes, if not quicker, with the right equipment, right tools. But the problem is they need, and I agree, they should be serialized and there should be background checks. You shouldn't be, right now, where you were until recently, you were able to, if you're a felon or you're a bad person, you could order these online. And then you have it shipped to wherever, and then you assemble them.
But I looked at the statute. I think it was when I was a law clerk in Florida prison system, where the statute itself, it doesn't say anything about serial number. It said what constitutes a firearm is
right.
Those would still constitute a firearm because
I think so.
A certain speed or whatever.
Readily assembled, right? You can readily expand. It's a weapon that projects a projectile by means of explosion, and that will do it. And it's readily assembled. Now, before they used to have it separate. They didn't have these kits. Polymer 80, that's the name of the company, out of Nevada. They would have it separate. They would have the 80% of the lower of the frame shipped out and the other parts. So it wasn't that easy. But then when they put the kits together, little boxes, that changed everything. That changed everything. And that's been a problem for the last few years. That's what they call them, ghost guns. They're untraceable.
So now they're illegal. They banned them again.
Well, the Supreme Court put an injunction that they can't sell it like that right now. If they put serial numbers on them, they can. It has to be going through an FFL. It has to go background checks.
But are they made out of composite materials where somebody can easily remove them? Because I know on metal, when you remove them, you guys, ATF, can bring up the numbers with some kind of acid or something.
Yeah, these have. Yeah, you can try, but we have ways to get serial numbers back through our labs and stuff like that for sure. Different chemicals you can use, but the big problem is there's no serial numbers on this. It's untraceable, nothing at all.
Made out of?
It's polymer, so it's like different plastics.
So technically, you could have one strapped to the middle of your back and walk on an airliner with it.
If there's no metal there, it could be a problem. It could break some out. So there's security reason also on that, which I don't like. But also more importantly is that these criminals were ordering them. And I had a case, and I'll tell you about this one, how this came about. Very interesting case. One of my last big cases before I went to headquarters. I was in a firearms trafficking group out of Miami working with FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We're embedded in their building in Miami. And we get a call. Miami Beach Police Department, the authorities say, listen, we had this hotel call us, saying the housekeeping came into one of the rooms and they found cache of weapons all over. They failed to put the do not disturb sign. They failed to put the not disturb sign.
Don't you love how stupid criminals are?
Yeah. And she freaks out, obviously. She calls her manager, who then calls the authorities. They go out there. Miami Beach says, what do we got here? They call ATF. I'm duty that week. So I go out there, and plus we're in the firearms trafficking group. So I go out there and we check it out. Long story short, there's a lot of these boxes, and I have a post. If you go on my Amazon site, I have pictures of the seizure. They're P80s, right? They're boxes with the 80% of the lower frame with the parts in there, right? And then they have just parts also with also just the 80% of different stuff. That it was going to be shipped to France, right? I call this case the French connection, because long story short, with working with Europol, our contacts in Europol, our contacts with French authorities, this was an organization. They have these French kids come over here. They had ordered them online. These are all parts. They were put together in hotel rooms and then illegally ship them back to their country. And the lady escorting them was a Mexican national. So French national, Mexican national, working together, make sure they're just a couple visiting, but they'll be picking up all these orders, putting them in the room, and then shipping them out to France.
And you determined that how? By finding who owns that room and interrogation?
Yes, they were still here. Yeah, they were still here. I interviewed them. They confessed to what they were doing.
So in reality, all they had to do was say, we're just keeping them for local personal use, and they weren't breaking any laws.
Well, the problem is it's so much. It was egregious. It wasn't personal, and they knew. And these people were not. I mean, they're not like hardened criminals. They're being paid to be traffickers. You know, traffickers are being used, right? So, and then I even talked to the person in France. They put me on the phone with him, who was going to, and he told me. So that leads to a lot of different things. And he had a business which was like a sports store. So in other words, he'll be able to fix and work on these weapons when they came out there, and they were untraceable. So they would go to organized crime.
The Interpol or some of your counterparts out there ever get that guy, or he's sliding?
Yeah, they did work on it, and ended up taking them down, the organization, and seizing, I think, over 500 other weapons that was out there. And it broke down. That's what I call the French connection. That case started a big one that led down to a big organization being taken down.
So when they put you on the phone with a guy, was that a controlled undercover call,
Yeah.
like you posing at something?
Not posing. I had recorded. He knew how I was in, and he was trying to talk his way out of it. You know how people think they can BS their way out of anything? And he said, all right, let me talk to this guy, see what he says. And he came up with this BS story. I knew it was still illegal what he was doing. So people sometimes think they can talk their way out of a paper bag or whatever.
But the more they talk, the deeper the hole gets.
And more information I get to pass on to authorities out there. They didn't understand, and a lot of people don't understand, there's a huge network, right? That they think, oh, what happens in France, they don't know in America. Of course not. We have Interpol. We have Interpol's in Lyon, France, first of all. Europol is in The Hague. I mean, we have contacts. We have all over the world. I mean, it's just ridiculous. People thinking.
Hey, were you ATF Miami at the time? There was a movie called War Dogs about some kids that got involved with the ammunition, the illegal ammunition, and all that. Were you part of ATF Miami during that case when it unfolded?
I don't remember when was the year. I think maybe in Tampa when that happened.
I don't remember, but it was some young guy got involved with buying a bunch of ammunition from Soviet bloc or something.
Yeah, I saw the movie. I thought the movie was fascinating. I think it was Tampa when that was going on. But interesting story. People get themselves. But you know what? This is the modern version I had. This guy's French, right? He's coming to South Beach. He has a female that he met online. He pays for her trip to from Mexico. So they look like they're a couple. They're doing their rounds, and then they had a hotel room. Like, oh, everything's nice. We're having a little honeymoon, whatever. No, they're trafficking a lot of weapons to France, untraceables, P80s, and other parts that they're going to put together.
What year was that? Did that case make the media?
A minute media over there made local. Yeah, it made some stuff.
That sounds like something that a movie should be made out of. That's an interesting screenplay right there.
It's in my book, ATF Undercover, folks. If you like what we're talking about, it's in ATF Undercover also, and it's in my Audible. There's a lot that we're working on the screenplay that could be worked on, and I think the things that I've seen and what goes on, especially with weapons, I know more stuff than most people do on cutting edge stuff. What's going on, and ghost guns are a big problem.
Okay. All right, Ignacio, what do we have next? We got something else fascinating going on. I think you had one more topic today, or
let me see what else we got here. Oh, yes, we got one more good one here. Last night, the shooting with the FBI and this guy in Utah who had made threats against President Biden. And they go in there, and allegedly, what I'm reading, of course, it's just what I'm reading, when I'm seeing the news, he pulls a gun out on them, on this FBI SWAT team, the HRT, opens up on them and smokes the guy.
Wow.
So, and he had, I guess, stuff on social media and stuff like that, where if the president comes to Utah, I have something to show him, or he's called Commander and Buffoon or something like that. He had all this stuff. It's unbelievable stuff he had out there. But he unlike, look at this. We took care of this guy who made threats against the president. The FBI did. And then if you look what happened in Ecuador, I'm not sure you happened to see what last night. Guy running for presidential candidate 2 weeks from the election gets assassinated.
Oh wow.
Big
Hinckley, John Hinckley, he shot Reagan, and so at least that day, I think somebody died. Somebody else had a brain injury. Jim Brady, Brady Bill. Well, he was eventually released from prison a few years back, and now he's doing music videos all over the internet. I don't, obviously support any kind of violence. I think he'd be a fascinating guest. I was going to reach out to him, see if he'd want to come on. I don't know if he'd want to do a show with John Hinckley.
I'll talk to Hinckley, sure. If people, but what's I mean, he said it because he wanted to impress Jodie Foster, right?
Yeah.
She was a big name there in 1981.
He had been stalking her. She was going to, I think, Yale, and he found out she was already a celebrity. She was on Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro.
Taxi, yeah.
And so he's slipping notes under her door, leaving her anonymous, messages and secret admirer type stuff. Yeah, he was obsessed with her.
He wanted to impress her, but lessons learned. I know we talked about Zangara almost killing FDR. He killed the mayor. Oswald killing Kennedy, right? And we've had history of Lincoln, McKinsey, Garfield, other presidents being killed. It happens. It's a scary thing that happens out there, and that's why protection. That's why secret FBI take it so seriously. Once you make that kind of threat, and they go out there and address, and the guy had the audacity to point the gun at the agents. Well,
I think it was right around the time I got released from prison, or maybe just before. Was it? It wasn't Parkland or Coral Springs, the other community next to it. The FBI was raiding somebody's house who was like a pedophile.
Oh, yes.
Guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pembroke Pines.
We're talking here for news purposes. We don't usually use that word, but he allegedly was involved with crimes against children, and he killed, I think, 1 or 2 FBI agents recently. I think
at least 2. I remember this happened a few years ago. I left. I was in headquarters when that happened. Yeah, I think it was like maybe 2019, maybe 2020. I have to look the date up there. But you're right. You can never. I did a lot of search warrants also, and you have to be prepared. But sometimes you think, oh, this guy is a pedophile. He's going to be low risk. He just has images. Type warrant. And he got opened up a shotgun and blasted them, killed 2 others, injured, and the SWAT team had to respond and take care of the threat, take care of this guy.
A lot of them are, obviously they're unstable and they're sickos, and in my opinion, but a lot of guys know what they're facing with those type of charges, which is weird because I had nonviolent charge and it took me 18 years to get out, and I've seen people with those charges get out in a lot less. But on the other hand, it's a lot of variables, and depending on the judge and the deal and this and that.
Yeah, but, they cooperate and they do some big stuff. They get big reduction for sure. I
had a cellmate who was like on parole for that, I think state level, and he got a job selling some fire suppression equipment or something, and very strict parole, and they kept checking on him. Now he was in like 20-something years for this, right? For pictures and images and messing around with kids. And so he had a device, they call them the thumb drives, which I didn't know about until I got out of prison. I didn't even know what a thumb drive was. But anyway, so he had one of those. And his supervisors at work always noticed when they walked over to him at his workstation, he'd quickly, log onto a different screen or something when they walked up on him. So when the parole officer came, they said, we're a little suspicious of him because every time we go near his desk, he gets off the screen he's on real quick. So they did something to ambush him and leave that screen up. And when they got him, he was looking at that material. Plus, on his keychain, he had a keychain with millions of whatever it is, a bunch of images again.
Of kids?
So he briefly became my cellmate, and I went out somewhere, and he tried to hang himself in the cell, and he nearly killed himself. I'm going to prison the rest of my life. I said, you should have thought about it before you did that to begin with, let alone doing it again.
That's
he
the
was
thing
crying like a baby every day.
Yeah, those people are sick, and ATF, we come across a lot of sickos. Sometimes they're involved in firearms trafficking, they're involved in kiddie porn, and sometimes they're doing it to their own family members. It's so sad. Sad sickness. It's a sickness, perversion.
All right, so we're wrapping up the show. You check out Ignacio's books, my books. You know where to find them on our website.
Amazon. Yeah.
So, we are going to be doing the show every Saturday night, 8:00. Join us. This is a live. Add your comments if you're watching the show. Ask some questions. If we can't get to them right now, we'll certainly get to them next time we come back. And Thank you for joining us, Ignacio. Anything else you want to wrap up?
Just any other topics you want us to talk about? We'd be more happy to do our homework and do some more digging. And we did a great show on bikers. If you like Biker Gang, check it out. It's doing well. If you like the Mafia, we're going to show us on the Mafia too. Miami Sister with the Mafia. We'll keep on talking. You want to talk more about ghost guns? I'll be more happy to educate more people about what's the problem with ghost guns. Palmer 80, P80, big thing. ATF had a big search warrant at their manufacturing factory. So a lot of things going on. Right.
And we keep a clean channel. This is all for educational, informational purposes. A lot of this stuff's in the news in one way or another. It's just with Ignacio and I, you get a different perspective. I lived a life of crime for many years, unfortunately, that I deeply regret. And Ignacio was on the other side of federal law enforcement. So it's a good fit. We have different perspectives, and I enjoy having you as a co-host. So it's
man. We have good discussions, and I hope everybody enjoys. And numbers keep on getting higher. And like I said, subscribe to the channel, enjoy, and go visit us on Patreon and other sites and support our work.
Yep. Thank you for joining, everybody. See you next Saturday night at 8 o'clock right here.